And so you were living in a society and you were part of a community that was telling you that, you boys have to look after your mother.
Once a rising star of comedy, now a quiet figure caught between fame and frustration, what happened to Patrick Kielty? He was the man who once crossed an ocean for love, stood on some of the biggest stages in the UK and Ireland, and used humor to confront trauma and politics alike. But lately, something's changed. Why does Patrick seem more distant? Why do his public moments feel heavier, more charged, with tension, missteps, or quiet withdrawal? And how did a man once known for bold, heartfelt choices become someone so hard to reach, even in the spotlight? From career shakeups to personal crossroads, this is the untold story of how it all slowly fell apart, and the moment that may have left Patrick Kielty isolated and alone. A transatlantic love story. It all began with a text message and turned into a storybook gesture that made headlines across continents. In 2012, Patrick Kielty proved just how far he was willing to go for Cat Deeley. Literally, she was in Los Angeles celebrating her birthday. He was in Belfast. But when she casually mentioned her birthday lunch at the Beverly Hills Hotel, he did something few would dare. He booked a transatlantic flight on a whim. He left for the airport at 5 a.m., flew to London, then LA, and showed up just in time for that lunch. That bold, almost cinematic move changed everything. It turned a friendship into a romance, and eventually a marriage. Their wedding was just as dreamy. Held in Rome in September 2012, it was an intimate affair that marked the beginning of their life together. For the public, they seemed like the perfect pairing. She was the UK sweetheart turned American TV star, and he was the clever, politically minded comedian with Northern Irish roots. Together, they blended humor, heart, and glamour. For over 14 years, they built a life in California. While Kat became a household name in the US as the host of So You Think You Can Dance, Patrick kept a quieter profile but remained active in stand-up, documentary work, and broadcasting. Their sons, Milo and James Patrick, were born into that West Coast life, and for a while, everything appeared idyllic. But even in love stories, geography matters. Patrick once said, "Unless someone was stupid enough to get on a plane, nothing would have happened."
I think all these things happen at the time they're meant to happen. I think, funny enough, if we had got together at the start when we were working together, because when you're working together first, you can kind of get on each other's nerves a wee bit.
Ironically, it was that same transatlantic divide that would later begin to reappear. This time, not between countries, but between two people who once defied distance. And when they moved back across the ocean, the cracks began to show. Moving back and moving apart. In 2020, after over a decade of living in Los Angeles, Patrick Kielty and Cat Deeley made a major life change. They moved back to the UK. On the surface, it seemed like a homecoming, a return to their roots, family, and familiar surroundings. But underneath that decision was a shift that would quietly reshape their relationship. Cat Deeley quickly stepped back into the British television spotlight. In 2024, she landed one of the most high-profile roles on UK daytime TV, joining This Morning as a permanent presenter alongside Ben Shepherd. The move reinvigorated her career in London, placing her front and center in the public eye once again. Her schedule became packed, her face back on billboards, and living room screens across the country. Meanwhile, Patrick's return home took a different direction, geographically and professionally. Rather than settling in London with Kat, he rooted himself in Ireland, taking over as host of RTA's iconic The Late Late Show in 2023. He also maintained a steady presence on BBC Radio 5 Live. His work, although successful, was based in Dublin and Belfast, hundreds of miles away from his wife's world in London. What was once a shared home life became more like parallel tracks. Two careers, two cities, and two completely different rhythms. Their children remained the uniting force, but the separation in their day-to-day lives grew more apparent with time. From red carpets to rehearsals, parenting to primetime hosting, the overlap seemed to shrink. The physical distance mirrored something deeper, an emotional drift that neither party ever acknowledged publicly. There were no fights caught on camera, no statements of discontent, just quiet, consistent absence. As Kat and Patrick put it in their official announcement, "We have taken the decision to end our marriage and are now separated. There is no other party involved. We will continue to be united as loving parents to our children." 2 cities, 2 careers, and less time in the same room. Was the separation physical? Before it ever became emotional? A comedian in controversy. Patrick Kielty has never been afraid to push boundaries. As a Northern Irish comedian raised in the shadow of the Troubles, and as someone whose father was slain by paramilitaries, Kielty's voice has always carried emotional weight, political complexity, and an edge honed by personal experience. But in late 2024, that sharpness sparked a public storm that left him exposed. During the opening segment of The Late Late Show, Kielty made what many perceived as a joke gone too far. Sinn Féin lodged an official complaint, calling the comment shocking and entirely inappropriate, especially considering McDonald had previously been the target of death threats using the word traitor.
Deception, betrayal, where everybody keeps changing their stories. Well, all we have to do is work out who's telling the truth.
Party TD Louise O'Reilly called the sketch very ill-judged, warning against normalizing far-right language even in the name of comedy. Accusations of electoral interference were thrown into the mix, this just weeks before a general election. RT Ebai defended the monologue, framing it as satire and emphasizing Kielty's right to comedic expression. In RTA's own defense of the broadcast, the network insisted, satire is a core part of freedom of expression. But the damage was done. The backlash wasn't just political, it was personal. For a man who had always blended humor with conviction, the moment revealed just how fine the line could be. Kielty stood by the joke, but the controversy left him isolated. It tested public goodwill and may have added new pressure to a marriage already strained by distance and diverging paths. In front of the camera, he laughed through it. But off stage, the consequences were far less scripted. No drama, but deep distance. In an age of messy celebrity breakups, the absence of finger-pointing was almost startling. But it also made the truth harder to see. If there was no big moment that broke them, what was it? The answer may lie not in a single event, but in years of emotional distance that slowly, invisibly grew. Their careers took them in different directions. Their home bases shifted. Even their public appearances as a couple became less frequent over time. Still, both remained fiercely protective of their family. Their children, Milo and James Patrick, stayed at the center of everything. In photos and interviews, both Kat and Patrick projected unity as parents, always emphasizing love and respect when it came to raising their sons. But a relationship built on love requires more than co-parenting. It requires presence. And with Kat filming in London, Patrick presenting in Dublin, and 2 different media worlds pulling them in opposite directions, presence may have been the first thing to fade. There was no public fallout. No cruel words exchanged. Just a slow withdrawal of time, of intimacy, of connection. And for Patrick, who built his career on stories that dig beneath the surface, that kind of invisible unraveling may have been the hardest truth to face. Sometimes, the loudest endings are the ones that come without a sound. The final straw. Patrick Kielty has always stood out, not for being flashy, but for being fiercely grounded. A comedian born from the conflict of Northern Ireland, he carved a unique path in entertainment. Whether it was hosting his first comedy club in Belfast, tackling political tensions through satire, or producing deeply personal documentaries like My Dad, The Peace Deal, and Me, Kielty's career was never about playing it safe. It was about speaking hard truths. But in the last few years, as his public roles grew and his personal world shifted, he may have found himself increasingly adrift. Meanwhile, his personal life was unfolding in a different orbit. Kat was thriving in the bright lights of London's media scene, hosting This Morning with polished ease. Their lives, once rooted in the same place, were now built around different cities, different schedules, and different energies. What was once a shared dream began to feel like two completely separate realities. As Kielty once admitted on a podcast, "For a long time, I genuinely thought I was in a 50-50 partnership. Then you realize you're actually a junior shareholder in a 50-50 partnership. I don't think you can have one decision maker." And perhaps that was the final straw. Not a single argument or one big mistake, but a quiet realization that he no longer belonged in the world they built together. Patrick Kielty once crossed the globe just to share lunch with the woman he loved. Now, he faces a different kind of journey, one toward rediscovery, reflection, and maybe healing. If you want more real stories behind public figures, like, comment, and subscribe. And don't miss the next video for more celebrity revelations and emotional deep dives.